that we know all the drivetrain does function, we just need to work with that tensioner a lot more. I want to transition back into something I'm not looking forward to doing, which is welding up all of the seams on this body. So, as you can see, I've already gotten started and have been moving around like crazy. So I'll do a little tiny inch worm weld, not even an inch worm, that's like a centimeter worm weld over here, hop over here, hop over here, hop over there, hop over there, tack here, and so on. And we're still getting a little bit of distortion. That guy's like, the top plate's a little bit, this is a little, so definitely gonna need to do some work, but this is pretty thin stuff, so I should be able to hammer it around and work it around as need be. So I'm just gonna keep working away at this, and then we'll grind it flush and end up with a finish like we had back here, which is relatively smooth. Doesn't really show on camera well. This one was absolutely riddled with porosity, which is not ideal, especially for paint that's gonna hold rust in there. So I'm doing a much better job at prepping my joints beforehand, so when I weld them, we don't get that porosity again. So I'm gonna get back to it. Not really that interesting of a process. It just takes forever, so I'm not gonna do too much filming, but I'll try and keep you guys up to date. All right, next evening, Friday evening, and we have a completed welded body. That took like 6 hours of solid welding and grinding. Got all of the seams done, head to toe. So we're gonna go ahead and get the body off, and we still have to do the hood, which needs a little bit of adjustment in spots like this. It's not very aligned, but that's pretty much ready to get welded together. So, all right, we've been cruising right along here on the front end. Get it all welded up, and now we're in the process of smoothing it all out. It's not smoothing out that great. Definitely gonna need some filler work up there, but for what it is, I think it'll be perfectly fine. I think for now, I'll leave this joint just welded as is. Maybe I'll go in and grind it all smooth. I don't know, that might be more work than it's worth. Might look kind of cool with the individual tacks. We'll see once we get the primer on it, I guess. But not that cool of a process, just takes forever to grind all this out after it takes forever to weld it all out. So I'm gonna keep moving along, and hopefully soon we'll have the welded body and the welded front end back on the frame and see what it all looks like. All right, we're gonna go ahead and slap the body on for the first time with it finished. Well, pre-paint finished. And it's not even that good. Wish I could do this with real cheap bodies. All right, it looks pretty cool without the red fenders anymore. I think all just bare steel. Body's not bolted down, so that gap will go away once that happens. I just wanted to get a good look at it, but I do need to cut out some bracing for the floor here. That's not strong enough by itself, and probably do a little bit more bracing in here. I don't know, but otherwise, it's looking really good. I was kind of debating on whether or not I want to do a step here. It would definitely make the fender stronger, but I don't know. A real wheelies, it would go all the way back to the tub, I think. I don't think I'm going to worry about that. All right, we've got the kick panel formed up and tacked in. It does stick up a little bit here, but we'll heat that up with the torch, beat it in, and it'll be within this lip. That was not an easy piece to fit. I got a little bit of a gap down here to work on when I have the body off again. But I need to see check and see that I can still pull the body on and off with that on there. I think I should be able to, but not sure. But that should give the body a lot more rigidity and keep my legs from getting covered in mud. So consider that a success. Now we will continue a piece on over here, but I need to get a shifter finalized before I cover that up. And probably need to get the front chain output going. All right, so today we are changing gears on the project on the mini Jeep, and that is trying to figure out some rear brakes. So our front brakes, that's the original hydraulic brakes, that's taken care of. Rear brakes are tricky because this caliper and rotor went on the original Polaris transmission, which I am not using. So this would actually go on the output shaft as well as a sprocket. But I don't have that liberty. So I'm going to put it on the rear axle down in here, which is tricky because there's zero provisions for it at all. Another thing that makes this tricky, this is a splined shaft. I think it's about 1 inch in diameter, maybe less actually, where this shaft is tapered and goes all the way from like 7/8 up to like 1.5 inches all the way up here. And we need it as close as possible up here because we need to build a caliper mount somehow. So basically I've decided it's gonna go over here, and then our caliper mount will tie into the swing arm somehow. But the biggest problem is this bore. We need a way to attach this to the axle. This needs to be much bigger, and this is not a solid bore. It's locked in the vise here. It's this much surface area. So if we opened it up all the way to the diameter that I needed at the center of the axle there, it would actually take away this whole hub, which is not gonna work. So my plan is to pop all these rivets out of here and then make my own custom hub, and then either build some sort of collar, which I'd have to have machined for the axle, or, and I hate to do it, but we could just weld it to the axle, but I hate the idea of doing that. There's also this possibility there's these nuts over here, but I don't really want to get into that. And the last possible option, which was suggested to me by a couple people, is to actually build it onto the sprocket here. So basically there's these studs here. So you'd have the sprocket right here, and then the rotor would be right there. I don't like that idea either. So I'm gonna stick with trying to figure out some sort of collar. So I'm gonna get cooking on that, and I'll let you guys know what happens. All right, we get the rotor off of that hub here. What I ended up just doing was grinding off the heads of all the rivets. On the other side it was the hub, and then just beat them through with a punch, and it came apart, and it still stays flat. Also got that caliper off, which is pretty seized on there. I don't know if this caliper is going to work anymore. Definitely need a new set of pads. But I saw these calipers on Amazon for like 30 bucks, so I'm not too concerned. So we got our wheel pulled off here. And with this big center hole now, you can slide this up as far as we need to. So that's good. So I'm going to take the diameter of the axle at the taper where I like it the most, which is all the way up near the carrier. And then I guess we're just going to go ahead and plasma cut out a little hub out of our 3/16 plate, which is going to be tough to find some real estate, maybe just down there at the bottom or right here. But I'm really getting my money's worth out of that, that's for sure. Plasma cut out a hub. Transfer over these holes, drill them out because that's too small for the plasma to cut and get a good definition. And then we'll have a hub. Then I can decide to either get a custom collar made to clamp it onto the axle, which I don't think will work that well without. This had splines in it, obviously. So if we just have a clamp on, it'll probably slip. So we're probably gonna have to weld it on, which I hate the idea of it because it'll probably ruin the serviceability of this axle. But oh well, I don't know. We'll weld it on in a way where I can definitely cut it off, that's for sure. So I'm gonna get to doing some plasma cut. All right, we kind of copied our old hub here, just with a different center diameter. I am gonna try and cut the holes, but I'm definitely gonna re-drill them. So I've got them drawn out a little smaller. I think we'll be able to cut that. They're just 0.2, I don't know, might be too small. We'll see. So I went back and cut another one because it really kind of mangled these holes. I mean, it did them and they match, but I don't want to deal with any slop here. So we cut another one with no holes. So we'll just transfer our holes, drill them, be much more precise. But thankfully I only had to cut two because I put the one right there. And I cut that one there. And I don't think there's a single spot on this top sheet here. I got a sheet sitting on top of a sheet where I could fit that. These are not all mini Jeep parts, but they are pretty primarily all mini Jeep parts. All kinds of little brackets, and that's the top and bottom of the swing arm. There's the clutch adjuster. I mean, I can tell you what a lot of the things are in here. So kind of funny. It's a transmission mount, all kinds of stuff. So really got a good use out of the sheet, I think, but we'll get a couple more things cut out of it, I'm sure. All right, we got our rotor bolted up here, and it fits on the axle pretty well. So that'll go something like that, which I'll do a little bit of drilling on that center hole, grinding actually to get it in closer. I want it to be a nice tight fit, but I want it closer over here so we don't have to build nearly as big of a caliper bracket. So to do that, I will probably drop the swing arm and the axle out of it. That'll just make everything easier. I can line it up better. A lot easier than just working on the ground. And I need to pull the swing arm anyway to clearance and make room for our idler to move up and down without clearancing. I also think the chain's hitting this little spot on the swing arm anyway, so I needed to do some work. So this all makes sense. So we'll pull it all at once, get it all done at once, and then hopefully, I thought I already have everything done back here, but hopefully then I'll finally have everything done. We can also, when we build that caliper bracket, we'll tie that shock mount in a little bit better. I didn't think I was gonna have an issue, so I didn't worry about bracing it up, but we'll just tie it into the caliper mount and kill two birds with one stone. So that'll be next, I think. All right, so I got the swing arm all pulled out of here. I went ahead and clearance that area for the tensioner. Also got it cleaned up, getting ready to weld that rotor on here, but I was having a hard time getting the rotor to square up nicely because the plasma cut a circle with a huge kind of an angle on it. So to true it up, we're going to use the new lathe that I picked up yesterday, and I got it set up here in a way that I think will work. I am much less of a machinist than I am a welder, so kind of guessing here, but we're just going to try and straighten up that inner cut here. My head's probably right in your way, isn't it? All right, got the swing arm pulled out and it's sitting in my vise here. And I got the rotor sitting on there, and I think I got it balanced out about as well as it's gonna get. So I got this mag-based dial indicator set up. And then we're just gonna spin it around. It's within about 5 degrees. With the naked eye, you can't even really tell. So I might chase it a little bit more and try and get it just a little closer, but this is working out pretty good. So I'll get it close and get it tacked up. All right, we got it all welded up. Welded 100% on the outside. I mean, you can see it's pretty straight. Definitely a little bit of wobble in it, but I had it pretty close to the dial indicator. Of course, it's gonna bend some when I weld it. I think it'll be good enough. The pads will take it up. So now, as soon as I find where I set my caliper, aha! We have to figure out a caliper mount. So I'm thinking it's just going to be something very simple. Caliper goes on there. A plate will bolt into these two holes. I could do it either way, really. Probably do it that way. Bolt the plate into those two holes, weld it to this shock bracket, tie it into that. Very easy. The problem comes, I'm out of thick material. So that means we need to scrounge in the scrap pile for something to build this out. All right, so we got a bracket made up here. Drilled the tool holes, tacked it to here, and then we'll plate in here. Seems like it'll work, but I don't think this caliper's long for this life. It was, had it spinning for a while, and then now it seems like it wants to seize up. So I don't suspect it'll work. It looks pretty crusty. I think I can get a new one for about 30 bucks. So we'll go ahead and do that. But I think the bracket and the rotor and everything should work fine, I hope. Well, I think we have strike two against using this caliper. While reinstalling the axle here, found out it actually hits the frame. So that's not going to work. So we need a caliper with much smaller profile. That's okay. I was already against this caliper anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and order a universal one with hopefully a much smaller profile. And we'll go from there. All right, well, after the successful test drive, I had to do something I've been waiting to do for a long time, and that was throw these little headlights in here. So these are kind of oddballs because they're only 3-inch diameter. And what I did was I just took the little brackets and tacked them right in there. Face them forward. Let's see if I can show you. So, yeah, you can see them from here. I just took the little brackets that you'd usually bolt in and welded to the front. Kept it simple and nice and flush. Gives them a nice little appearance. I will have to get some sort of special disconnects for the wiring to make that easy. I was going to try and just mount the lights to the frame itself so you don't have to worry about that, but this looks a lot better in my opinion. It gives the best adjustability and everything. So that's one thing it's done. And one thing I noticed during the ride is this thing is extremely tail heavy with me in it. And with a four-wheeler, you can lean a lot to transport your weight, transplant your weight around. This thing you cannot. You just have a little bit of leaning to the sides, I guess, but it's just super tail heavy. So to counteract that, one little thing I can do is I have this winch and this pretty heavy bumper that I'm going to try and incorporate in the front here. So I think I'm going to try and work on that for the night, at least get started on it and see where I can get. Now, I know that's not nearly as much weight as I am, but it's a start, and it's all the way very far forward, so maybe it'll help a little bit. All right, so I got the winch bumper, I got the winch all the way out of it, and I was doing some looking. I think if I just cut these welds down here and tilt it, I think it should go on here pretty easily. Now, you may be wondering why I have a little tiny winch bumper. And I didn't actually build this, believe it or not. My friend Steven built this years ago for a Cub Cadet 1200 lawnmower that he was building into a off-road lawnmower, kind of like my diesel Sears that I did a video on this past winter. If you want a cool video, check that out. Me and my buddy, another friend who had another Cub Cadet off-road mower, did a cool little revival and got to use them. So anyways, that was the original purpose for this winch. And when he didn't finish that tractor, I bought it off of him. He actually did a really good job building it. At the time, he only had a flux core welder, so that's why the welds look a little rough. But fabrication-wise, it looks really good. So I'm going to try my best to use it. It's got a cool look to it. Might as well use it. So I'm going to cut all these welds in here, and then we're going to try and just change that angle to match this front piece, which at first I didn't think was that beefy, but it's tied right into the frame rails here. And there's little gussets back here, so I think if I weld it on there, it'd be pretty stout. That's the plan. Let's see what happens. Alrighty, we got the bumper tacked up here. It is just tacked. I haven't figured out any support or anything for it yet, because I can't really decide if I like it or not. I'll give you guys some different shots of it at the top, obviously. It just about matches the width of the grill. But I don't know. It doesn't look bad by any means, but I'm just not completely sold on it. Well, I pushed it outside to try and get a better view. Really digging the headlights, so that's nice, but I think the bumper's gonna have to go in the scrap pile. I don't know. Got some input from some buddies, and they all agree that I should just build something custom. Which, I mean, this bumper is extremely custom already, but build it the way exactly how I want it. So I don't know how to do that, though. Well, I think it's about time we figure out the brakes. Was just kind of cruising around the backyard, checking out some gearing and stuff, and was trying to turn around in a tight spot, which this is not this thing's favorite thing to do with the locked rear. And it slowly just kind of rolled away from me and almost went off the edge here. So that's as good a sign as any to get some brakes working.